This is a Smart Faith production promoting a mature, robust faith in God. Hello and welcome to Evidence 1 of Evidence for Belief, Uncovering the Fingerprint of God. This is a series which examines evidence for the existence of God, and it presents it in a way that the average person can understand. I've documented this evidence in greater detail in my books 7 Reasons to Believe and No More Monkey Business, Evolution in Crisis. And those books are available from my website, smartfaith.net, along with a whole bunch of my other books. Over the course of this series, we'll be examining evidence from a wide range of disciplines, including cosmology, biology, genetics, physics, philosophy, history, and even mathematics. And I'll be introducing you to qualified experts in each of these fields, many of whom have concluded that the best possible explanation for the observable evidence within our universe is the existence of an all-powerful creator. Of course, I can't prove to you that God exists, because proof, in an absolute and final sense, is simply not possible for anything. I can't even prove that you exist, and that this world is not some kind of giant simulation into which we are all plugged. But what I can do over the course of these episodes is present evidence that is observable, measurable, and logical. Evidence that builds a cumulative case for God's existence. And in the end, when all of that combined evidence is considered, the cumulative case that it builds makes the existence of God overwhelmingly probable. In fact, in my opinion, the existence of an all-powerful supernatural creator is the most logical and reasonable explanation for the vast body of evidence that I'm about to present to you. In this first episode, we're going to examine cosmological evidence for God's existence. In particular, we're going to discuss the question of the origin of the universe. And I think that this is the ultimate issue that atheists and skeptics must address. If there is no God, as some people claim, then how did the universe come into existence? By what means did it begin to exist? For thousands of years, skeptics and atheists avoided this issue of ultimate cause by proposing that the universe had no origin, no beginning, that the physical universe has simply existed forever. Aristotle first proposed this view in 350 BC, the idea that matter is eternal, and atheists have been holding on to that viewpoint ever since. Even as late as the mid-20th century, many philosophers and scientists were still clinging to this view. For instance, Bertrand Russell once said, "The universe is just there and that's all." In other words, it didn't have a beginning, it has always existed, and hence there is no need for an explanation. But throughout the 20th century, a series of remarkable cosmological discoveries and developments have completely overturned this viewpoint. Firstly, there was Einstein's theories of general and special relativity, which he published in 1915, and his formulae very strongly implied that the universe must have had a beginning. Einstein's calculations pointed inexorably and indisputably to the universe having a finite beginning. Then, in 1927, a team of scientists led by Alexander Friedmann published further research proving that Einstein's theories of general and special relativity do, indeed, necessitate a finite beginning to the universe. While this made many atheist scientists rather uncomfortable, it remained somewhat speculative and theoretical until 3 further stunning developments in the years that followed. In 1929, using the best available telescopes at the time, Edwin Hubble noted the Doppler redshift of almost all visible galaxies, indicating conclusively that the universe is expanding outwards. Extrapolating backward from that evidence, it became apparent that the universe had originated from a single locus in space-time at some point in the distant past. In other words, Here was physical evidence that Einstein's theory was indeed correct, and that the universe had been birthed at some point, possibly with a Big Bang. Then in 1964, two American scientists, Drs. Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, discovered and measured residual cosmic microwave background radiation, a residual level of radiation that pervades the entire universe, a fading but still detectable echo that is left over from a proposed super hot, explosive, creative event at the beginning of space-time. This discovery eventually earned these two scientists the Nobel Prize for Science in 1978. Here is some data from more recent measurements of that cosmic microwave background radiation, provided by astrophysicist Dr. Hugh Ross. It shows the ambient temperatures of various regions of our universe. The red dots on the chart represent the measured ambient temperatures of space at varying distances from Earth. Now, significantly, the data reveals that regions of the universe that are further away from us, and therefore further back in time and closer to the creation event, are hotter than those that are closer to us and not as far back in time. This shows that the universe is gradually cooling over time, and the gradient curve of that cooling rate is consistent with and proportional to the temporal distance of the various regions of space from a proposed superhot creative event at the birth of our space-time continuum. Now, if all of that is gobbledygook to you, simply put, here is measurable, observable evidence that in the form of a fading thermal signature of a super hot explosive event at the birth of our universe. Finally, over several years, while these stunning cosmological discoveries were still being analysed and unpacked, other scientists were extrapolating from the second law of thermodynamics, and they were deducing that the universe can't possibly have existed forever, because it is clearly winding down, and that process can't have been going on eternally. You see, the second law of thermodynamics posits that in any closed system, and our physical universe is such a closed system, entropy increases, moving that system from order to disorder. Now, this law points out that our universe is moving inexorably toward a point of eventual thermal equilibrium. To put this in simple terms, the stars in our universe are gradually exhausting their fuel and dissipating their heat into the vastness of the interstellar cosmos. Now, if the universe has always existed from eternity in the past, the universe would have completely extinguished itself by now. The stars would have used up all their fuel and completely burnt out, and there would be nothing left now but infinite, uniform coldness and infinite blackness. There'd be no light, no heat. The universe would be a cold, dead, dark place. But the fact that the stars are still burning strongly, even though they are slowly exhausting their available fuel, tells us that the universe has not existed forever, that it had to have had a finite beginning at some point in the distant past. So, the upshot of all this is that by the end of the 20th century, these 5 discoveries and scientific considerations, Einstein's initial equations, Alexander Friedman's extrapolations of those equations, Edwin Hubble's discovery of the expanding universe, Penzias and Wilson's discovery of cosmic microwave background radiation, indicating a cooling universe, and finally, extrapolations from the second law of thermodynamics, all of these resulted in cosmologists reaching a stunning and inescapable conclusion that the physical universe actually had a beginning. This was a very surprising and confronting discovery. For example, the late great Stephen Hawking commented, We have made tremendous progress in cosmology in the last 100 years. All the evidence now seems to indicate that the universe has not existed forever, but that it had a beginning. This is probably the most remarkable discovery of modern cosmology. He's right. It is the most remarkable discovery of modern cosmology because it means that atheists can no longer hide behind the concept of an eternally existing universe. They must now confront the question, where did matter, the very stuff of the universe, come from in the very beginning? Now, one of the fundamental principles of science is that everything that begins to exist has a cause. Something can't come from nothing. Cows and chickens and bicycles simply don't pop into existence by themselves, and neither do universes. And logically, whatever caused the universe to begin must exist outside of that physical universe. The physical universe could not have brought itself into existence from nothing. Something outside it, something beyond nature, something supernatural had to create it. It's simply logical. Now, significantly, in recent years, a growing number of cosmologists have conceded that the only explanation of the origin of the natural universe is something supernatural. For example, Dr. Robert Jastrow, astronomer, physicist, and founder of NASA's Goddard Institute of Space Studies, and also the author of the book God and the Astronomers, wrote in that book, "Astronomers now find they have painted themselves into a corner because they have proven by their own methods that the world began abruptly in an act of creation to which you can trace the seeds of every star, every planet, every living thing in this cosmos and on the earth. And they have found that all this happened as a product of forces they cannot hope to discover. That there are what I or anyone would call supernatural forces at work is now, I think, a scientifically proven fact." Similarly, Dr. James Clerk Maxwell, a physicist who is considered by many in the scientific world to be equal in importance to Einstein himself, said this: "Science is incompetent to reason upon the creation of matter itself out of nothing. We have reached the utmost limit of our thinking faculties when we have admitted that because matter cannot be eternal and self-existent, it must have been created." Astrophysicist Dr. Hugh Ross again wrote, "Astronomers who do not draw theistic conclusions, that means conclusions that there must be some kind of God, are becoming rare, and even the few dissenters hint that the tide is against them." Jeffrey Burbidge of the University of California at San Diego complains that his fellow astronomers are rushing off to join, quote, "the first Church of Christ of the Big Bang." Well, despite all this, there does in fact remain a resolute group of atheist scientists who refuse to consider a supernatural cause for the universe. And they have proposed a number of extraordinarily fanciful theories, such as bubble universes and expanding from pre-existing universes, an explosion in a pre-existing quantum realm, or pre-existing black holes creating universes. And some scientists, such as Richard Dawkins and Stephen Hawking, have even speculated that maybe pre-existing aliens created our universe. Other scientists have made the even more bizarre suggestion that maybe our future selves travelled back in time and created our universe. Well, I have to say, these theories, I'll mention them again briefly in the next episode, Big Bang in Trouble, but for now I simply point out that none of these ideas are actually scientific theories, because scientific theories are based upon examination of evidence that is observable, measurable, and repeatable. None of these fanciful ideas are based on even the slightest shred of hard evidence. They arise solely from the imaginations of scientists who are desperate to avoid a supernatural explanation for the universe. And of course, none of these speculations solve the question of ultimate cause. They all simply move that question one step further back in the chain, because they all use the concept of pre-existing forces or beings. Christopher J. Isham, Britain's leading cosmologist and an astrophysicist at the Imperial College of London, wrote, "The idea that the question of ultimate origin supports theism is greeted with obvious unease by atheist physicists. At times, this has led to wild scientific theories being advanced with a tenacity which so exceeds their intrinsic worth that one can only suspect the operation of psychological forces lying very much deeper than the usual academic desire of a theorist to support his or her theory." Well, he's absolutely right. These are indeed bizarre and fanciful imaginings that arise from a desperate desire to avoid a supernatural cause for the universe. In 2014, Bill Nye, the science guy, a world-renowned spokesperson for the atheist movement, had a debate with Ken Ham, a Christian scientist. And Ken Ham asked him the question, where did matter come from in the beginning? Bill Nye responded, "We don't know. This is the great mystery. You've hit the nail on the head." Well, actually, I don't think it's a mystery at all. Genesis 1, verse 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." You see, the reason why science has not been able to find a natural cause for the universe is that there isn't one. The universe had to have been caused supernaturally by something outside of itself, because something can't create itself. It's just common sense. I might also point out that the theory of evolution, if you're wondering about that, actually offers no answer to this conundrum at all, because the theory of evolution begins with a pre-existing Earth, with a pre-existing soup of chemicals in a primordial swamp on an already existing planet in an already existing universe. So even if evolution is true, and there are some very serious problems with the theory that are emerging, it actually provides no answer to the question of how the universe got here in the first place. The issue of ultimate origin remains a huge unanswered conundrum for the evolutionist. So, there is a very brief introduction to the cosmological evidence for the existence of God. Evidence which centres around the question of ultimate causation, the need to explain the origin of the universe. And in my opinion, this evidence alone is overwhelming. The origin of the physical universe cries out that there is a God. And I think it takes much more faith to not believe in a creator, because if you reject that idea, the only other option you're left with is the idea that the universe somehow created itself from nothing. And that defies all laws of causality and common sense. It is just nonsense. In episode 2 of Evidence for Belief, Big Bang in Trouble, we're going to continue to explore this question of the universe's origin by examining the commonly touted Big Bang model, which, although it does point to the universe having a finite beginning, is increasingly plagued by problems which some scientists claim can't adequately explain the observable structure and behaviour of our universe. For more information on any of these topics, you can check out my books, which are available on my website, smartfaith.net. Also, keep an eye out for my upcoming series, Hard Questions, Real Answers, which tackles the most common objections and questions regarding Christianity. Well, thanks for watching episode 1. Please check out episode 2, and in the meantime, have a great day. More podcasts, videos, and resources are available at smartfaith.net.